Hello, everybody. It's Fernando Labastida once again at another episode of Martechify. Just to remind everybody, Martechify is a connected learning community of marketing professionals where they can share ideas and best practices about how to be successful in today's, head-spinningly changing Martech environment. And we're really happy to have today with us as our guest Dean Nicholls. Dean is the Vice President of Growth Marketing at Jumio Corporation. And so, welcome, Dean. Where are you today? What part of the country?
Today I'm actually in Los Angeles, but I normally live in Seattle.
In Seattle. So you're from the northern West Coast to the southern West
That's right.
Coast, etc. So yeah, I actually used to live in Los Angeles as well, Long Beach to be exact.
Yeah.
Well, great. So let's get right into it. Your experience is fascinating. You've been with Microsoft, you've been with so many really cool companies, and you got your start as a product marketing manager with Starbucks, or a product manager with Starbucks, or even
Yeah,
before that with Delta Dental. But I was wondering if you can kind of walk us through your career trajectory and kind of tell us how you got to where you are today from those early days at Delta Dental and Starbucks.
sure. Maybe I'll start with Starbucks because I think for a lot of some of the earlier positions where I was just kind of fresh out of grad school, I was more of an analyst.
Yeah.
When I went to Starbucks, I was responsible for forecasting coffee demand for one of the business units that was like the direct and the website side of the Starbucks business. These are early days at Starbucks, right? So the idea is if you forecast too much coffee, it ages out. If you forecast too little, it sells out, right? But it was a very, very quantitative job. And then I morphed while I was at Starbucks from that to doing more pure marketing. But
Yeah.
the same metrics bent really influenced how we did marketing at Starbucks. And so it was all kind of by the numbers. And so while there are all different flavors of marketing, I think the quantitative side of it is really kind of where I've been focused on for the last 30 plus years.
Well, that's fascinating. And actually, I'm very curious as to how do you use quantitative marketing at a huge retail corporation. I think, well, back in those days, it wasn't that huge, but like, is it more about predicting foot traffic and seasonality and being able to do your marketing that way, or?
Well, again, for us, it was we were responsible for the portion that was really what they used to have a catalog, and they used
Hmm.
to have the website back then. And so the idea would be on a catalog, when you dropped a catalog, we did it maybe 4 or 5 times a year, is if there was an ad for a tumbler or a certain variety of maybe a coffee gift pack, based on where that ad was in the catalog, if it was on the left hand side of the page or the right hand side of the page, if it was early in the catalog, you could, based on historical trends, you could say this, we think will pull this well, right? And so
Hmm.
you're guessing. It's all a big guessing game, but it's based on a lot of data, right? And then we
Yeah.
also do a crazy amount of testing because back then we relied a little bit on email and a lot on direct mail back in those days, and we do crazy amounts of tests, like literally testing when you send out a letter based on the color of the envelope or the stock of the envelope. What does that do to your response rates? We measured
Right.
everything, and so
Yeah.
that's how. Now those were in the days when Starbucks wasn't on every corner, right? We
Yeah.
we only had a couple thousand shops globally, and obviously that's greatly expanded. But that's how we helped get the word out, and that actually helped seed some of the new stores as they started to expand out.
Yeah. That sounds like as though it was probably early '90s, maybe.
Yeah, well, a
Or
little bit late 90s. Yeah,
yeah, a
late
little. Okay,
90s,
because I
early aughts.
remember I remember going to some of the first Starbucks when I was living in Long Beach, and they were kind of my favorite places to go. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounded like as though you were actually doing a form of conversion rate optimization, but with catalogs and with stores, etc.,
Yeah.
which I think is so cool. I think is really cool about that. So so then eventually you ended up as a senior product manager at Microsoft. How did you land that gig?
Well, obviously these were all based in Seattle, and so I'd been reading about Microsoft, when I was in grad school, and I mean, I probably should have gotten in earlier if I could have, from a stock appreciation perspective. But uh, I mean, they were looking for more of a quantitative marketer, and I had some of that from my Starbucks days, and it was just a really good fit. But then it was my first foray into really tech marketing and
Hmm.
B2B tech. And it was obviously very, very different in terms of marketing. It was no longer B2C, it was B2B. And but it's still the same principles of metrics and how you analyze what's going to work and how you test and A/B testing was still very much how we did things. And
Yeah.
one of my first roles at Microsoft was we were launching something called Office Live, which was the precursor to Office 365, which were all the web-based flavors of Office and the Office solutions online. And we literally had a goal of getting 100,000 customers in the first year, right? And
Wow.
so we
Pretty
tried
ambitious.
it was a combination of tactics, so it was email, it was PR, it was online. It was all about testing and not, again, I was told very early on, we don't really care about your opinion. We care about the
Hmm.
numbers. What do the numbers
Yeah.
say when you're doing this testing? Um, and so that was a great experience as well. And then part of that was also learning how to position a product in the market. So I
Hmm.
was lucky enough to be helping to kind of develop the value prop for Office 365 with a lot of interviews that we did, not only kind of in focus groups, but online testing, just to see like which of these messages really resonate, right? So that
Hmm.
when we went out to market, we had a pretty good sense that these were the right messages to go out with.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's sort of like the scientific approach to marketing. We'll have a hypothesis that this message might resonate, but let's go out and test it in the marketplace. I have a friend that actually worked at Microsoft during that time as a product marketing manager, Gerardo Dada. I don't know if he was probably, I think, more on the B2B side of things, and you were in the more well, Microsoft Live was a different, but I don't know if that resonates with you. He was one of our interviewees here actually at
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But he's originally from Mexico. He had moved to Austin, then he moved to Seattle, and he lived there for a good 6 7 years to work for Microsoft as product marketing manager and then director. So, but Microsoft is so huge, I wouldn't think that you would
Yeah,
run
and
into
it's
him.
just a great place to learn, right? And so
Yeah.
it's, you learn from people that have worked for some of the biggest and best companies in the world. So it's a great place to train. It's a great place to learn, frankly, learn marketing.
Yeah.
Now, one of the challenges though is you get a little bit spoiled. Like when you send out an email and you're from marketing, you got a really good chance that email is going to get opened, right?
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
then move to a smaller no-name brand, you're used to having that success, and all of a sudden your response rates plummet. It's like, oh, that's right, we don't have the Microsoft brand behind us. So
Right.
you got to build that brand, which I mean that's hard work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that probably explains a lot of some of your next assignments, except you were with Symantec, which is a pretty well-known company at the
Right.
time, right?
Well, so actually,
Yeah.
just prior to that, I went and joined a company called Live Office, and Live Office
Hmm.
did email archiving. So still very much B2B tech. And uh, what we did essentially, as you're sending and receiving email, we're archiving all of those emails and then indexing them so they're immediately searchable. So the reason becomes important is if there's ever legal discovery. Sometimes a lot of financial service companies have to do it for compliance reasons. So they can literally search all the emails between Dean and Fernando between this date range that contain the word fluffy, right? And
Right.
whether that email is, whether that's in the body of the email in the subject line or literally in the attachment, they can literally find all the emails relevant between Dean and Fernando. So you can see the kind of hopefully the value of something like that. And then that company was acquired by Symantec, who
Right.
who were looking for that kind of cloud-based solution.
Hmm. So, but going back to what was the name of the company, Live Office, it seemed like as though it was a very niche market, right? So,
Yeah, very niche. And these were still like, now we're talking about the early 2000s. And
mm,
what was happening now was this is the same time. So this originally the company got its start in financial services because what was happening is that the financial services were using a lot of online channels to communicate with their customers or prospective customers. And they would be making claims online about, that I can generate for you a 25% return on investment. It's like, but you've never ever done that in the past. And then the FINRA, which is the kind of the regulating body, was saying, like, we need to be able to see all of your reps, all the broker agents, your communications with customers to make sure you're not misrepresenting or making these kind of false claims. And so all of a sudden this whole space emerged out of nothing and emerged as we started to use email as our primary form of communication.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it went from kind of a niche to sort of like a really almost kind of like a mass market in a
Well, and
way.
the thing
Yeah,
that, and this has been true in a number of places I worked at, including where I'm at now, when you have regulators who are effectively putting a gun to the head of the broker dealers saying, you will have an email archiving solution and you will be able to, you will allow us to audit your communications between your agents and their customers or prospective customers, that's a boon, right? To a company
yeah,
like, because we say, like, we can help you become compliant. And at that point, we
yeah,
were one of a handful of companies that could actually do that.
yeah. That is a boon. That's one of those things where it's like, golly, how do we get so lucky? Regulation is making our product almost indispensable.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So, in your current role, right? So, you're with the Vice President of Growth Marketing at Jumio Corporation. Offline before we hit the record button, you were telling me about how Jumio is kind of like a identity verification company for somebody that might want to sign up for some kind of financial, fintech, or something else where they have to verify identity. So, tell me a little bit about your growth strategy, your go-to-market um, activities at Jumio.
Right. So as a B2B company, my job and my team's job is to effectively generate high quality leads, right? So
Hmm.
the part of that starts with really kind of getting inquiries, and it's really a full stack of marketing. So we're leveraging PR and analyst relations that helps provide some air cover for us. Um,
Right.
but when it comes to kind of the pure demand gen, we're relying on a lot of the same tactics. We're relying on email, relying on events and webinars to help drive that. But probably a good chunk, probably 50% of our leads come from all the efforts we do around search engine optimization and what we call paid leads, which is on Google and on LinkedIn. That those are probably not only the highest, the biggest channel, but also the highest performing, highest converting channel because you're getting people while they're in search mode.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
in addition to those kind of tactics, which is really almost from an inbound perspective, increasingly we're adopting account-based marketing, which is obviously a lot of people in our space are. It makes sense. We're essentially
Yeah.
going from a shotgun to a rifle approach where we're handpicking the accounts globally that we want to go
Hmm.
after. And then surrounding those, and then once we find those accounts, finding the right people at those accounts that we want to target, and then surrounding those people with really meaningful content. Because, as you know, Fernando, I mean, reaching people via email or LinkedIn or phone calls, that doesn't work. I mean, it gets really, really hard. And so we really are strong believers in the power of inbound marketing, the power of content, the power of education to really drive those conversions and to drive those website visitors.
Yeah. I mean, there's a rate of diminishing returns now when it comes to using outbound with cold email, outbound with cold DMs within LinkedIn. People are more and more actually trying to avoid that kind of stuff, and I'm almost thinking that they're going to start ruining, or if not already have ruined LinkedIn because of all the you accept somebody's friend request, and they immediately start pitching you, right? So.
Yeah. By the way, I can't think of a time where that wasn't the case. I can't think of a time where
Hmm.
someone linked out to me, linked into me, and genuinely wanted to provide business value to me without selling me anything. Right?
Yeah.
There's always a hook. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, I really like the approach of providing relevant content. The shotgun approach. Tell me about your Martech stack because I'm always really fascinated about how people are using technology, to identify people before they've even self-identified, before they become a lead, and then tracking them after they've become a lead. So, kind of curious as to how you're doing that at
Sure.
you
So
know,
maybe we can kind of
Jumio.
work our way through through the funnel. One of the things that we've done is we're a Salesforce shop, and a
Hmm.
lot of companies in B2B tech are based on the Salesforce platform. And then what we've done is we've have a lot of plugins to that, and a lot of connective tissue that goes to that. Now, one of the things that we've done, there is a gal on our team who really focuses um, on intent signals. So
Hmm.
we leverage a company called Qualify. Qualify
Hmm.
does not only does it's typically known for in some of the inbound chat bots that people see on their websites, but what
Right.
they've also done is they've tapped into these intent signals. And so We use two different flavors of intent signals. And on the back end, I think they're probably using Bombora or someone like that. And the intent signals, again, the two flavors are what we call research intent. So if someone is researching the category of identity verification or a compliance standard like KYC, which is know your customer, even if they're never on our website, we're tapped into those organizations via qualified. The other one that's a little bit more direct is if they're on our website. And again, many times when someone's on your website, we know via the IP address what company, we don't know who, right? So we get these qualified signals. And again, that's integrated into our Salesforce instance. And so if Bank ABC is on our website, we know it, and we know it in real time. Now, what we don't know is who are the people at ABC who we probably should care about. Who are they? And so what used to be like again, I manage both BDRs as well as the field marketers, and that's you know that helps from the marketing perspective because then I can work with the BDRs to figure out how do we go about figuring out who that person is. So
Right.
we would then leverage something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and there's some other tools as well that help us find the key titles of people at Bank ABC. And then from there, we can find the email address. But it's not exactly a cold email because we know, again, this person may or may not have been the person on our website, but we at least know their organization is
Yeah.
interested in the topic that we care about,
Right.
right? So
Right.
our hit rates are a lot higher. So that tells you a little bit more of our tech stack. So we leverage LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Lead IQ for some of our contact sourcing. We leverage Zoom Info, which we have also integrated into Salesforce. So when a company is on our website or they fill out a form, to learn more information, we can immediately append additional information about using Bank ABC. Where are they located? How many employees? What's their revenue? And we get that information.
Yeah.
Uh, we also leverage Pardot, which is part of Salesforce.
Salesforce. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our marketing automation tool. And
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, it already has a connective tissue with Salesforce, and so that helps us with lead grading and lead scoring. It also
Uh-huh.
helps us with the lead routing, right? So where does that
Right.
lead go to when it comes into the system? And
Hmm.
so one of the things that we do is again, I don't think we're very unusual in what we do here is we put leads through a continuum, right? So the initial lead stage is an inquiry, someone who raises their hand. If they get enough lead score or enough, uh, um, if we think that they're a very good prospect, they'll go from an inquiry to an MQL, and that's all programmatic via Pardot. Does that lead scoring and lead grading? Um, so if it's the VP of compliance at Bank ABC, and Bank ABC is a target account, then we're going to be probably taking that lead and go right to the AE. In other cases, the BDR is going to qualify that lead, and then when they do that, they turn the lead into an SQL, and then it works its way through the sales funnel.
Right. Perfect. So somebody who they do an inquiry, right? Or they fill out a form or they download something, they've identified themselves. Then how are you doing that match between all these people that come to the website, maybe they download something, and then your ABM target list? Like how is that
So
alerting you guys?
yeah, so it's connected via Salesforce. So if it is
Hmm.
a target account, I mean, there's a field that we have kind of at the account level. So let's stay with the example of Bank ABC. Bank ABC
Yeah.
is a target account. It's one of the ones we're going after. It's labeled as such. So if anyone that comes in with an email address of first name, last name at bankabc.com, that lead automatically gets routed to the account executive versus and they know it's one of their target accounts right now.
Right.
The same thing happens, by the way, if someone doesn't fill out a form, right? But we know that
Hmm.
someone from Bank ABC via the intent signals, and because that will tell us that someone from Bank ABC is on our website or someone's researching it, and then we quickly go into high gear to try to figure out who potentially could that person be. And again, we
Right.
might identify three roles that are relevant. Maybe it's a compliance person and find those people, and then ideally same day reach out to them. And it could be we reach out LinkedIn or via email saying, "Hey, we don't say like a little birdie told me that you might be in the market, but we let them know
Yeah.
that maybe we can have a conversation and see if we might be a good fit for you."
Okay. That's really cool. That's really cool. And then once they once they come down to the bottom of the funnel, obviously then that's where the account executive will take over, because it is a high end, it's an enterprise sale, obviously.
Right.
You're not trying to push people to some kind of an e-commerce
Correct.
page or something. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's fascinating. And then so in terms of the Martech stack, so you talk about Qualified is the name of the company.
Qualified, yeah, is the name. And
Qualified. You have
yep,
and
we looked at other big programs, like Six Sense and Demand Base, and I think in time we will get there. So, for
mhm,
example, one of the benefits of those programs is it's not just identifying the intent signals, right? But they have ways of surrounding those people with online ads, like via LinkedIn or even third-party ads. And so we're doing some of that, but we're doing it um, a little bit after the fact. It's not all fully integrated. Now, again, that's kind of where we are. Now, one of the things that we've done, and I think when I think of ABM, I think half of the issue is around, do you have the right technology in place that allow you to identify people that are searching? But half of it is, what is your process? So once you've identified an account that's in the market, or that's one of your target accounts, how do you in fact surround them with the right content, right? Both
yes,
online, offline. How do you, are you inviting them to webinars that you're doing? And so
right,
one of the things we put a lot of effort on is making sure between the field marketing team, the BDRs, and the AEs, they're operating as one team. So if an AE has, say, 20 to 25 target accounts, we want them to treat each one of those target accounts literally as develop an individual game plan for each one of those accounts. And it starts by identifying the key people at those accounts. It identifies the right content that we might have that would be relevant for that role and that persona. Um, and then it's figuring out, how do we reach out to them and surround them with relevant educational content? Because again, no one wants to be sold.
right,
No one wants to be sold. But if we can educate them, and get into some of the nuance, like we notice that the way that when you're onboarding people, we go through a liveness detection step that you require the user to turn left and turn right. And that's a lot of friction. Have you thought about a different approach? And there's other approaches in the market. And again, we're showing, first of all, that we've researched how they actually onboard new customers, and we're providing them some practical insights for maybe how they can improve the process, whether they
right,
use us or not, right? And so
right.
our big, I mean, that's when we think about account-based marketing, it's a lot about how do we identify the right people, how do we provide the right content, ideally at the right time, and not take again, this whole shotgun approach where everyone's going to get the same message. Ideally,
Hmm.
everyone gets a very different message that's
Hmm.
relevant to them, that speaks to them based on their role.
Yeah. And and what really stood out to me, from what you said, is that you do educate the client with almost kind of in an altruistic way. I mean, obviously your end goal is to sell them, but you provide them with education about, okay, how do you decrease the friction of your onboarding while at the same time being able to do a very accurate job of identifying people. So you're actually helping them to do their job better, whether they choose, Jumio or not.
Right. And I think what's so important is we still have to rely a little bit on email and LinkedIn to reach these people, right? So if you come
Hmm.
out with a strong sales message, the first thing they're going to do is block you. They're going to unsubscribe. They're going to report you as spam, right? And
Yeah.
so then you're done. You're done with that entire organization, right? So you need to soft pedal it. You need to provide real value. And unless you're providing value, they're going to essentially block you forever, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're because a lot of these larger companies that we're targeting already have systems in place to block potential spammers, right? That they don't
Yeah.
recognize it. And so you got to get past that front door, which is the hardest part of our job.
Yeah, that is a hard part. So yeah, and that's a very fine line to walk. I mean, because if you are a little bit too, uh, if there's too many telltale signs that you're approaching them with some kind of like a commercial message, that could be the
Yeah.
death
So
for your company at that company.
I mean, I honestly view like having bullets in your email and having the email look too polished is the death
Hmm.
of that email. If it is very personal, so I send you a very personal email, Fernando, and it looks like I'm literally having a conversation with you, and it's literally no more than two or three sentences that you can read on your phone. And
Right.
I'm not trying to sell you something, at least initially. I'm saying, hey, I noticed this is what you're doing on your website. Have you thought about a different approach? And then provide a real value. Way less likely you're going to get blocked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. So, you know, before I get to my next question, there's something that I was kind of curious about. It seems like as though you have this sort of unified way of working between the teams. The account executive and the field marketing, et cetera. Has Jumio been able to get to a point where the account executive is not possessive, kind of too overly possessive of their leads and saying, marketing, I don't want you to message them because I'm taking charge of this
Right.
prospect right now. How do you
Well,
get to that point?
I think like when I first started at Jumio, marketing was viewed as, oh, you guys just do PR and events. That's all you do, right? And when you looked at the pipeline being generated by marketing, it might have been like 10% back in the day, right? Now marketing is responsible for 67 70% of a salesperson's pipeline.
Wow.
We're effectively feeding the sales team. So they don't view us as the PR company or the events group, right? They see that we're providing strategic value to them, right?
Hmm.
The other part of that is when it's all about, look, we're going to help you because again, the BDRs are really part of marketing here at Jumio. Um,
Right.
we're going to help you instead of just reaching out to a single contact and be kind of single threaded. We're going to try to, the BDRs are going to try to identify 8 or 9 people in the company that we think are probably a good fit. That's something that you don't have to do, as an AE. They love
Hmm.
that. By the way,
Yeah.
the BDRs even take it a step further. They even craft the initial, and we use outreach kind of as a tool for email outreach. And they're developing the whole sequence of emails. And so when they're coming to the AE, they're saying, here, this account has been on our website. I've identified these 5 key roles that I think are the right people that we probably want to target. And here's 6 emails, sequential emails that I think make sense in light of their persona. And those emails are leveraging my infographics or blog posts, things that we've done. They're doing all that heavy lifting for the AE. The AE essentially needs to bless it, maybe do a little bit of course correction, and so they see real value in the BDRs, and the field marketing are fitting into that because the field marketing are helping them identify developing and creating the right pieces of content, right? And so they're seeing real value, and they can then just focus on the sales process, so they don't have to do a lot of, again, smiling and dialing on the phone. They're
Hmm.
Again, we want them doing some hunting. So I got to be really careful here that we don't
Of
turn them
course.
into just simple farmers, but
Farmers.
they can now they can simply now focus on whale hunting, knowing that
Mhm.
we're going to be doing a good chunk of the work behind the scenes for them to help get a foot in the door into these accounts.
Golly, I wish I'd had that when I was an account executive.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. So that figure of 10% of the opportunities they were working coming from marketing to all the way now 67%. Did that happen since you arrived at Jumio in May of
Yeah.
2023?
Well, actually, originally I came back. I worked there from 2016 to about 2020, and so
Hmm.
we did we moved the needle quite a bit during that 4 year stint. For probably from I want to say 10% of the pipeline to closer to 50, and then we've inched it up ever since.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. So getting to about AI, and I'm just kind of wondering if you have started incorporating AI, or is that still kind of like on the roadmap? Tell me about how you're thinking about AI when it comes to marketing at Jumio.
Yeah, we're probably in the early days of AI here at
Hmm.
Jumio, but we use it in a number of different capacities. So one of the simple ways we use it is as we're crafting responses to um, uh, a prospect, we're using AI to help clean up our messages, right, and write more professional emails. They're using AI in that capacity. Usually
Yeah,
the AI is coming up with the first draft, and then we're just cleaning up the draft. But that saves us time and energy, right?
yeah, absolutely.
The the other places that we use AI is we use Gong. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Gong? It essentially
I've
records the
heard of it. Yeah.
calls. Um,
Hmm.
and Gong is literally also taking transcripts. So as the BDR is talking with the prospect, is recording the calls and then also literally summarizing those calls via AI, so that they can literally cut and paste the synopsis of the call directly from Gong into Salesforce.
Right. Oh,
The
well,
the
that saves time. That saves a ton of time Because
A lot,
I know
lot of time,
salespeople
right?
hate time trying to update their Salesforce
Yeah.
account.
Yeah, I mean, and that technology is being brought by Zoom, and I mean that you're starting to see that in a lot of places where they're using AI to summarize. We're also
Hmm.
using AI, as part of the chat bot that we have on the website. We're using AI
Hmm.
as part of the increasingly as part of the personalization that we have on the website. Um,
Hmm.
so that when someone comes in from, and we know that you're in compliance, right, or maybe you're on the fraud side of the house, we're going to surface up content relevant to your role. Um, and so there's some AI involved there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well that's great. I love to. I'm really kind of fascinated by the whole topic about how companies are incorporating AI into the marketing. And what and by the way, just kind of curious as to what is the size of the marketing team over there at Jumio?
It's so let's see. We probably have about four field marketers, one for each of the different parts of the globe. We have about eight BDRs, and so that is my team. And then also part of marketing, we also have someone that focuses on PR. We have someone that does product marketing. We have someone that does the SEO part of it. So we're probably roughly around 12, 13 people.
Yeah,
Um, we also have someone who's also very, very strong at sales enablement, all part of the kind of the marketing crew.
got it, got it. And then do you also do anything with regards to internal, well, I mean more like loyalty marketing and like cross-selling and upselling marketing. So once you get a client in the door, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's maybe more features or more products, add-ons that you could sell to them eventually, making sure first of all that they know how to use the product, that they're onboarded correctly, but then also, trying to upsell, cross-sell, increase the
Yeah,
your
that
share of
that's
wallet.
that's increasingly becoming a big focus, and it's a major focus for us this year in 2025. So
Hmm.
we're creating what they call the pod accounts, right? So the pod accounts are typically our big anchor accounts, and they, again, like you said, they might have bought us for the primary purpose of identity verification, but we also offer other solutions around authentication and a whole raft of other solutions. And a lot of times those other solutions we need to identify other people within the customer organization because that's not necessarily in their wheelhouse, right? And
Hmm.
so part of customer marketing is making sure that they're getting the most value out of the solution they bought. And we do customer webinars, and we do that. We help work with the account managers to make sure that when they're doing their quarterly business reviews, that they have the right content, that they're imparting the right messages. So marketing helps there as well. But increasingly, and you're touching on something that's part of the pot accounts, is to figure out how do we land and expand, because in many cases we're
Right.
dealing with very, very large enterprises. I mean, very large enterprises. And so we might only be in one division, or we might only be in one region, but how do we get to the other regions? How do we expand our use cases? So we've identified a subset of our total customer base where we're looking to land and expand. And so part of that is trying to find new use cases. And I was using the example of a bank. So
ABC Bank. Yeah.
ABC Bank, and they were using us initially for identity verification. But another important, essentially a fraud use case is, Fernando, you've been a customer of Bank ABC for 6 months now, and they know your normal transactions, right? Now, all of a sudden, there's a wire transfer of $10,000 to the Cayman Islands. Well, that's an unusual request, right? Now, when you think about how banks have done that in the past, they might have relied on what we call knowledge-based authentication. Because when you created that account, they might have said, okay, what is your mother's maiden name? What is your first car? These kind of what they call security questions. The problem is many of those security questions are on the dark web now, as are the
Yeah.
answers. So why not use the biometric? Why not use the selfie and to say, is this the same Fernando that we captured when we onboarded him 6 months ago? And they can essentially say, before we send the money to the Cayman Islands, let's make sure that the same person making this request is the person who in fact created the account. But that use case is often handled by a different part of the bank, right? So
Right.
how can we get into that other division? And that's exactly what we're trying to help. And we're using the same kind of tools. We're trying to figure out, how do we identify the right division and then the right people that work at that division, using all these various tools that are at our disposal. And then, are there people that we do have relationships with who can actually introduce us to those people? And if not, can we then find a way in through the back door, through email, LinkedIn, etc.?
Right, exactly, exactly. Because maybe sometimes your account, your contact at the original department that bought you, maybe they would refer you, but maybe they're like, I don't want to refer you, or
Or
I
they
don't know
don't
who they
know. They
are.
just simply don't know the
Yeah,
people on that side of the house. So
yeah,
all of that stuff comes into play. But the same approach that we're taking to account-based marketing, right? We're taking to our these pod accounts.
yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. And I think that landing and expanding, increasing share of wallet with a client is one of those areas that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not like the sexy part of marketing, but I think it's so essential, especially with driving profitability, lifetime value of the customer, et cetera.
Well, and you think about getting the most value. How hard is it to land a new customer? How much does it cost you to land a new customer versus trying to expand your use cases with your existing customers where you already have a relationship? I mean, the second is
Yeah,
infinitely easier than the first and far more cost effective. The other thing that we've done is
exactly.
last year we started a whole series called the Expert Series that we invite a webinar series that we invite our customers to, and it's all about like how can you get the most out of the product, right? Or at least introducing them to new elements of what we offer that they may not be using or taking advantage of, but we're using some of the same marketing tactics like webinars to kind of show them the value of that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's great. That's great. This next question, it might get you to expand beyond what you're doing currently at Jumio, maybe go back to Microsoft or some other, but I want you to kind of, rack your memory to tell me what was your most successful marketing initiative or campaign. Tell me about a time when you just, uh, you just blew it out of the water.
Yeah, I think we've been doing some, even here at Jumio, we've been doing some, I think, some really smart, what we call competitive takeout campaigns. So when we
Hmm.
hear like maybe one of our competitors is having some challenges or they got acquired, right? How can we seize on that information to maybe take some of their accounts and move them over to Jumio, right? And
Right.
so where that starts is us knowing as much as possible about the competitor. What are they good at? What are they not so good at? And then also then identifying who, and this is the tricky part, who are the um, who are the people using the competitor? How do you find that information out? And there are some creative tools that we used to figure some of that out because a lot of what we're doing is on is done through apps. When people are when you're again, Bank ABC might have a mobile app, so when you onboard, you do it via a mobile app. So we were able to find essentially to find out ways to get lists of their customers. But the idea was
Wow.
we would drive them to a landing page that said, look, you're currently using competitor A who recently got acquired. If you're starting to explore, like if they're the right fit, here are 3 or 4 ways we're different, not necessarily better,
Hmm.
but we're different than them that maybe it's worth a call. But it was
Yeah.
super specific to that competitor and it was factually accurate. We weren't overhyping ourselves and we weren't lambasting the competitor. We're just saying, if you're in the market, maybe we might be an option, and here's 3 or 4 ways in which we stack up against them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds really cool. Especially, I mean, and especially now with the kind of applications and technology that we have now to be able to identify, you
Right.
know, clients of certain accounts. Might as well take advantage of it, right? Well,
Absolutely.
yeah. So competitive takeout. Um, well, that's very cool. So, what do you see, Dean, as kind of like Martech trends for the next year or so? What do you see coming down the pike? What's your predictions
Yeah, I
for
think
Martech?
I it comes down to like how do you get the foot in the door? And
Yeah.
I think people are getting a little bit more savvy about how they market to people and how they leverage email and when they leverage email and they use these social media channels. I think we're tapping into these intent signals. I think that is going to become very much the way people start marketing is through account-based marketing, account-based selling. Um, I think that's a major trend. And so the tools that allow you to tap into those signals and then to identify the key people at those companies that are in kind of research mode, I think that's where it's going to be a major thrust for a lot of companies, especially kind of in the B2B marketing space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I I mean, trend is, and I know you've seen this before, is just we have to constantly justify our existence in marketing through ROI, right? So ways that you can better track your campaign's effectiveness, which is really, really hard because it takes 10, 15, 20 touch points with a prospect before they raise their hand. And then how do you attribute, the money you spend for an event when that might have been the fourth touch point in their journey, right?
Yeah.
And so that whole notion of attribution, um, and how do you, in order to show ROI for the individual tactics that you're employing, it's a really hard business problem to solve. Yeah, and I think that that's what we're trying to get our head around that one. We clearly have not solved it, but I think that's a major trend that the companies like us are trying to solve for.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to another interviewee just before you, who she was saying that that's kind of like the big challenge that they're working on as well, and doing things like how are we spreading out all the attributions across in some cases hundreds of touch points, you know. So yeah, I feel what your challenge is. It's the challenge of every marketer now, especially when you look at the average tenure, the tenure of your average CMO these days. It's the pressure is on to really justify,
Right.
the ROI of what you're doing.
Right, and right away,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And I think
Mm.
another area where I think there's going to be some growth is around this whole notion of personalization, right? So when
Right.
you get Fernando that arrives at your website, knowing as much about Fernando so the content you serve up dynamically on the website is really relevant to you, right? And your
Hmm.
role. And so not treating everyone the same, but treating people very differently based on their titles and their roles. But it's very difficult to know that when you have a blind visitor to your website. So connecting those
Exactly.
dots, um, and so making your website a little bit more sticky through personalization. And so allowing them to maybe go as deep into your product as they want to, right? So,
Yeah.
whether they want to watch a 2-minute video or they want to read a short case study, serve this various content up, but it's got to be relevant to their role and their pain points.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was going to ask you about something related to intent signals. So it seems like as the mostly intent signals are really focused on the solution they're looking for. So they're solution aware. If you think about the stages of awareness, they're mostly solution aware. Do you see a point? And I'm just asking this because I'm curious about it. But do you see a point where, or are you all thinking about, or you personally thinking about maybe looking at intent signals for people who are like looking to solve a problem? Maybe they're not even solution aware. Maybe they don't even know that a solution exists, but they do have a problem. They're complaining about it. They say, "How can I stem the bleeding of cat? The red ink. How can I do this and that and the other?" Or is that too difficult? Do you
Well,
think
I
at
mean,
the
I
moment?
think what we do, we look at certain key phrases, right? So,
Hmm.
and this is, I think, some of the power of Bombora, which is often the engine that provides these signals, is that if there's a project around identity verification, right? That's the Uber
Yeah.
category, and we kind of fall under that Uber category, or it could be authentication. You essentially define the category. Where I think the real power from these intent signals is when they're able to say that there's 5 different people at this organization that are looking for topics like authentication, you can assume that there might be a project underway or getting underway, right? And I think
Right.
that's the
Right.
key. And if we're made aware of that, then we can jump and ideally reach out to them and let them know, we're one of the key vendors in the space. But the whole thing is, Google used to call this the zero moment of truth. I don't know if they still use ZMOT. So when someone types in identity verification, is your company found? Are you on
Right.
page one? Or when they're looking at Gartner or they're looking at some other kind of industry analyst, is your company being mentioned? That zero moment of truth is crucial. And so,
Hmm.
uh, so we typically will do everything we can to be on page one for all the keywords and key phrases that we care about. And if we're not on page one organically, then we're going to bid up those keywords to make sure that we're on the
Yeah.
paid side of it. So I think that's really crucial. And so I think tapping so that addresses the SEO side, but I think then tapping into that from the intent signals is just as crucial. So you're essentially, if you're not being found, you're going to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I remember the zero moment of truth. I think that was one of the coolest concepts, one of the coolest frameworks that Google came up with. I think it was like maybe about 7, 8, even 10 years ago.
Yeah,
They came
closer to
out with
10 years
that.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, Dean, this has been a fascinating interview, and I wanted to see if people could, if they want to contact you, where would they find you? Dean Nicholls on
On
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is probably the best way. Yeah. My name is
Yeah.
spelled a little bit uniquely. You can probably see it in my, by my pictures. That's how you spell. I don't think that any other Dean Nicholls out there on LinkedIn with my name the way it's spelled. So
Yeah.
reach out and
N I
happy
N
to
I
chat.
C O L L S.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's perfect. Well, I wanted to just thank you so much for coming on to the Martechify series, and I wish you all the best. I know you're gonna have much success in the coming months and years at Jumio, and I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you next time in another episode of Martechify. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
later.